Eagles fans, it's time. It is the second best time of the year if you're a football fan outside of the season. It's the NFL draft tomorrow, and the Patterson Report is here to give you the rundown on what to expect from the Eagles, how to expect the unexpected, and kind of the way Ryan and I would like to see this one go. But Ryan, I mean, this is your Super Bowl.
This is indeed my Super Bowl. I wait all year for this. Like every rumor, everything. Like I feel like I'm up to date on like everything right now. But tomorrow I'm gonna try to predict like every pick, and I'm just gonna get them all wrong except for like 3 or 4. So it's gonna be a good night. I love this weekend. It's always fun to see college players realize their dreams in the NFL. So.
And for those of you who maybe just know Ryan from this podcast, this is about an eighth of the things he does football-wise. The other 7 are all draft-related, prospect-related, fantasy football-related. So I'm going to take a bit more of a backseat on this episode and let Ryan nerd out on a lot more prospects than we typically do.
I'm gonna absolutely nerd out. I was so excited for this one. My Wi-Fi was down yesterday. I'm like, oh no, it was down to like 5 today. I'm like, we might not be able to get this done. I'm gonna be really sad. I'm gonna miss my chance to nerd out because usually I do a live stream during the draft. I'm not gonna do that this year, but on the other hand, the picks aren't gonna get tipped for me, so I'll have more surprise. It'll be the first time in like 3 years.
So let's get right to the Eagles. That's why everybody's here. I thought people listen to the show. I'm sure there's a couple other sickos like Ryan who love the all 32 craziness of it all, but the 90% of our listeners are here for Philadelphia-based news. So, I shouldn't say this. What do you think Howie's wish list is? Like, how do you think he's going into this?
I think there's been a lot of rumors that he's going to trade up, and obviously there's always these rumors because Howie's always working the phone. We know this. We're well versed with this, but there's a couple of players this year that he's going to have to trade up for. 22 is kind of this spot where it feels like a little bit of a tier break between the upper echelon of prospects and the fringe kind of first round guys. There's still going to be a lot of talented players at that pick. Don't get me wrong, but I think Howie's wish list at the top of it is an offensive lineman and a cornerback. And, I want to say edge too as well, because he loves his edge rushers. And there was someone who did a study. I forget. It was a little database on how GMs spend their draft capital. Howie spends his draft capital on the D line. I think the next position was corner maybe or wide receiver. And it was double the value from defensive line to corner or wide receiver, whatever position it was. So he always values the D line. And even with Bryce Huff, I still think he's going to value the D line, but corners at our top of our wish list. I think Howie's going to not prioritize corner as much, but we'll see.
So can you say, because I've been seeing some other rumors from sources that, I've mentioned on this podcast before as like hot take artists, and I genuinely hate the Philadelphia sports radio scene in general. And I've been seeing the WIP contingent pushing this narrative that, well, what if Howie trades up to get Brock Bowers? There's no legitimacy to that.
They're not Brock Bowers, but a couple of national media sources were pushing this in the past hour or two, that Howie might trade up for a wide receiver. I think it's smoke, but that there is upper level, people talking about, hey, this might happen. And don't get me wrong, wide receiver 3 is a need. We've been over this many times, but I'm saying like this
not around one need.
It's so deep. Address it at the start of day 3. Go out and draft a promising guy that you'd probably get day 2 in another class. Honestly, that's how I'd do it. But
yeah, my day 1 needs, and we'll get into we'll do our first 3 rounds predictions after this, but my day 1 needs were, there's a lot of positions how we could draft. I'm not going to be angry. Obviously, O-line, I always like stacking prospects, especially with Jeff Stoutland. He can turn anybody into a stud, especially a day 1 talent. So O-line, never get mad at O-line. Like you, I wouldn't get mad at edge. Corner is another one that I do think round one corner, how he's going to have to move up to get a difference maker.
Yeah.
Guys who you and I were talking about months ago who could have been where we're at, the way the landscape's changed, they're not still going to be there. So he's going to have to trade up for a corner once to go that route. And I feel like every year we beg for top end linebacker talent. He'll never do it, but that's another area I wouldn't be upset if he decided to break the mold.
There's no one in this class that we have to say, okay, maybe they might pull a fringe first round grade. I think Howie could address linebackers, one of the top 3 linebackers at 50. So this class is really deep and really top end at offensive tackle and O-line. There's going to be quite the run on tackles tomorrow. I think like that, starting with the Jets and going to like the Saints and Colts, it could be O-line central. You might have to move up into that group, even a little behind them with Seattle.
Okay. Now, I know when we're going to get back to the Eagles in a second, but I know we're not in any position to take a quarterback. I don't know if you saw, I believe it was Adam Schefter went on Get Up this morning and blasted Mike Greenberg for this narrative that San Diego could trade up and go quarterback. There's all this talk around everybody all of a sudden coveting J.J. McCarthy. I've always been kind of down on the guy, maybe more than most. I know you said he has some moments that could turn into promise, but who's legitimately in the quarterback race specifically for J.J. McCarthy?
As for J.J. McCarthy, I believe I've been mixing and matching over the past couple hours. You have the Vikings with a ton of ammunition to come up with 11 and 23 and next year's first. But there's a team within striking distance that J.J. McCarthy talked about going to himself on Rich Eisen's show, and he's in our division, so we're going to have to worry about him, the New York Giants. Say you're the Cardinals and you have even grades on Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., which you very well could. Some people have it, flip-flop this year. They could get one of those 2 guys at 6 and get a little bit of draft capital for the Giants to move up to 4 and go get McCarthy. I think McCarthy's going to be a Giant. That's where my head's at right now. I think the Vikings are going to swing and miss. That is where my head is right now. I think they're going to swing and miss, and I think quarterbacks go top 4.
Okay. I think there's no doubt that he's going to go, I think, personally higher than he deserves, but that is the way the draft goes every single year. There's just a premium put on quarterbacks and a premium put on tackles.
Got to pay that quarterback tax, whether it's picking them high or in trade, because, you see these trades for wide receivers and how he might make one for a cornerback or an lineman. It's not going to cost him as much if he was going up to that pick for a quarterback, because there's always just that added quarterback tax because teams know what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the rest of the league, and I know we're losing numbers here, so we're gonna get back to the Eagles. How about we run through? Look, I know all 7 rounds matter. For the sake of this podcast, why don't we go through like the first 3 rounds? How we think things are going to go for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm down.
All right. So round 1, I'll let you kick it off. Round 1, I'm not going to say anything. Round 1, what do you think happens?
Round 1, see, we talked a lot about Cooper DeJean, and I'd love it if he ended up in Kelby Green, but it just kind of didn't make sense for him to fall in the 20s because he's that good of a player. And of course, now the buzz is catching up to what everyone already thought of how good of a prospect he was. I think Howie is going to trade up tomorrow. I think he's going to work the phones and he's going to go to Denver at 12 and say, hey, you need extra picks. You need a quarterback. You could sit back at 22 and take Bo Nix and not, get a bunch of hate from the people of the world because, Bo Nix is over under is 31.5 now. So we'll see how that goes. But I think Howie makes the big move and goes up for Quinyon Mitchell, my personal cornerback 1 in the class. So that's how I think round 1's going. If he's, I think it's Quinyon Mitchell, but I saw Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. I know he's like, the top guy when you're looking at mock drafts. He has the Eagles trading up to 12 for Tulisi Fuanga, an offensive tackle from Oregon State. I wouldn't hate that either. He's amazing. So I think Howie's working the phones, and I think he's going to go up for someone. I'm going to say Quinyon Mitchell. Personally, I wouldn't be hurt if it was an offensive tackle because this class is insane.
So I have to agree with you there. Like I said, I would not be mad if they went corner. I I think that there's a guy that I'm been kind of following a little bit that I think Howie is like salivating at the chance at, because he's not gonna go in that top elite tier of O tackle, but Howie's going to move up to get him. So in my opinion, I think we do something with Seattle. Seattle's never minded acquiring extra picks to drop back. So there's probably something with a first round pick swap, and then maybe you throw in a later pick down the line.
Something from next year, maybe.
If you can get away with it, I think you might see, like
not one of our picks in the 50s is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking like third round.
You're going to have to pay that to go up to 12. You're going to have to pay one of those.
Yeah, so if it doesn't take us, I think Seattle's picking at 16.
There, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hoping at 16, if he's still there, Howie makes this move. I think Howie wants a piece of Amarius Mims. He loves his Georgia guys. He's high upside. He's a mountain, much like Jordan Mailata. I think he's 6'8", mid-threes. The knock being the lack of college starts. But, again, when you have the O-line you already have, and when you have Jeff Stoutland, I think he looks at him as a freakishly athletic, clean mold of clay for him to kind of turn Jeff Stoutland loose on.
Yeah, if you told me Amarius Mims in 3 to 4 years was the second best tackle from this class, if he could win to a good landing spot, I'd be like, yeah, okay. I think Joe Alt's going to be insane, but Amarius Mims.
Joe Alt, yeah, we're not even.
We're not. He's gone by 7.
Yeah,
we're discussing, like, if you said he was the second best tackle in this class in so many years, I'd be like, okay, yeah. I wouldn't bat an eye. I'd be like, what are you talking about, kind of deal. I'd be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's a big, but I think you slipped it in there, though. He is a big environment guy. Like, he could also be, God, can you believe he went first round? Because all the physical tools are there. Almost no experience. A couple of big games, but very little experience at that level.
See, I don't know if he's going to need to move up for Amarius Mims. It's just, how do these teams value these tackles? I mean, they're going to come flying off the board, but there's been mock drafts where there's 9 or 10 offensive linemen out of the 32 picks in the first round, and everyone's like, it's just feels standard at this point because the offensive line class is that good. So
and that's why I think you have to move up. I think
your guy.
I think if you're Howie, if it doesn't cost you too much, if you do that first round pick swap, like you said, 22 isn't a great place to be anyway. You're kind of in that gray area. And if it costs you a pick much later down the line, maybe in the 80s or so, I think at that point, if you're Howie and you really, you think Jeff Stoutland can turn this guy in,
though, this year, so they have to do it next year.
I thought we had.
We traded that for Kenny Pickett. I think it's later now.
You're right.
It's later now. It's a day 3 pick instead of a day 2 pick because it was a day 2 comp pick for. Was it Javon Hargrave or was that last offseason? I think it was Javon Hargrave.
Okay. I thought we had one this year. I must have been mistaken.
We did. You were correct, but he swapped that for Kenny Pickett. So.
Oh God, yeah. That compensation package for him still bugs me.
Don't get me started. But that's where the pick went. We did originally have that, so you weren't wrong. It's just a move we'd like to forget. We're forgetting.
Okay, so then I'm not sure what the rest of that package looks like in exchange for.
Bunch of late picks. It's nothing impactful. There's just we moved down a little bit from day 2 to early day 3, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, correct me if I'm cool if it goes to your scenario. It sounds like you're always cool with that line. So if either one of us are right, it's a pretty good first round for the Birds, I think.
Oh yeah. You chalk it up as an A and move on. Honestly, that's what it is.
So then where you go round 2?
Well, see, if I'm moving up, let's just say we stick it out, or we go with your scenario, because in my scenario we're gonna have to take a pick away. So let's just say at 50 we trade the other second for my trade. I think you gotta address linebacker. I know he hates to do it, but you have to do it in this class. You have Peyton Wilson out of NC State, who I loved on tape. Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M could be another option, and of course,
I would love
Cooper. You know where I'm going with this. You know where I'm going. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. would just be it just fit the story. I mean, he might go a little later than that, but
it'd be so great for Eagle fans, but I
I'm in on Peyton Wilson and Edgerrin Cooper. I think one of those guys will be there at 50. Peyton Wilson, I don't necessarily think that will, but Edgerrin Cooper, I'm pretty sure.
again wouldn't be mad. I'm a big proponent of linebacker. Like I said, I mean, I could have been talking the one even sooner if Howie decided to move back from package picks, but not at 22.
See how just I know we're talking about the Eagles here. I'm just going to throw in a little draft, just to impact our pick. I think the start of second round is going to just start flying wide receivers off the board. The Ladd McConkeys of the world, the Keon Colemans, the Xavier Legetts if he doesn't go round one. I think there's going to be a good talent at linebacker, another position that's pushed down to us at 50 just because of the depth of receivers that are going to go in the early second round.
Okay, I mean, I could see that. If you get first round linebacker in the second round, I don't think anybody's going to be too mad about that. I'm looking secondary. I think second round. I mean, you're getting Isaiah Rodgers back, who was coming off a great season, so he could step into a prominent role. But you still have the elephant in the room of last year's CB 1 and 2, both being on the wrong side of 30 and both having less than stellar seasons, and we've just been through this so many times where you wait too long to address the outside, and then God forbid you swing and miss, and now all of a sudden you're 2-3 years behind the curve. I'm all about kind of getting ahead of that. And I don't know if they're watching, but if Mike and Joe happen to be watching, I'm going to go with somewhat of a local guy, Max Melton, cornerback out of Rutgers. Not the SEC, not his Georgia, Alabama typical, where we've looked recently. But I the physicality. He's quick, but he's not one of those real stringy fast guys. He can hang on the outside. We're going to play some bigger receivers in the NFC East. I don't think he'll get beat up too bad. I would be totally cool if they went Max Melton.
I'd be perfectly fine with it, especially if they don't go round one corner. I'm okay in round one. There's going to be this possibility where Dallas Turner, who's a physical freak, or Jared Verse, who's super strong, starts to fall. And maybe, just maybe, Howie goes for that. We can't. I want to mention that because we can't rule that out, because I see the spots for those guys as Atlanta and the Bears. They're starting to look a little elsewhere. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. But if we don't go corner round one, we got to hit corner at least once in round two. I totally agree. So.
All right, and then we're it's to be a little bit of a shorter episode, so we're running a little tight on time. What are you looking at round 3? So we'll cut it off.
So you mean with our second rounder?
Yeah.
So with our second rounder,
wait.
We have 1553, and I don't think we have a round 3 picks. We traded it.
I think we do. Hold on.
I'll just talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just talk about 53 for a little bit. So if we're talking Brandon's scenario, I'd obviously go after a linebacker in that case at 53. But if we're talking about my scenario, I mean, wide receiver starts to creep up just because,
you're right.
Yeah, we did.
You're right. Away. It's well, we got a round. Yeah, you're right. It's a 50, 53, and then 120.
It's in my scenario, it's hard to imagine Howie not attacking offensive tackle or edge at least one.
I agree.
I think if we come out of Friday, technically, if we come out of Friday and we have the 3 picks made and it's corner, tackle, edge, I will just be over the moon. I think that's the way to do this. And I know I didn't propose it in my idea, but I think we're just kind of spitballing as many ideas as we can, because no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And
not even happen.
Yeah. So, and I'm just going to make one last note of the actual draft. I think for Eagles fans, pay very much attention to where Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix go. If they go in round 1, just pay attention to where they go, because that's going to push more quality talent down the board to the Eagles. If, say, the whole shenanigans happens and Bo Nix goes 11 to the Vikings because they couldn't trade up for McCarthy or May, that'll push another premium talent down us, or another premium talent down a pick where Howie can move up and go and try to get them.
Yeah, and then that is kind of the benefit of having those two like quick hitters in round two is if what you're saying is going to happen, you almost have the luxury to draft. Let's say you draft a need for 50, and then 53 rolls back around, and you're saying some of these guys who are supposed to be gone are there. It almost kind of turns into a luxury pick.
Look, Lane's getting up there, and this is the perfect class to bring in someone with Stoutland and say, hey, Lane Johnson's got 1 or 2 good years left in him. You might play some guard if you have guard, flexibility. There's plenty of guys in this draft class that have guard flexibility. They could play right guard if needed, and say, hey, learn from Lane, play next to Lane, and in 2 years, that spot's yours.
Yeah, and then so that's the responsible pick, and it's probably the way things are going to go. When I was kind of laying the groundwork, and I said luxury pick because it is if you're going to be a little bit stupid, it's not a bad time to do it.
I mean, we have Tyler Steen, so from last year was a round 2 pick that we haven't seen play yet. So I get the whole luxury thing because he's not going to ask to start right away, and we're in kind of a little bit of a Super Bowl window here, so it's kind of luxury, but it's not at the same time.
I think if at 53 somehow, like you said, people slide, and it's going to be. Junior Colson's still there from Michigan at 53. I think as much as Howie's hardwired to build the O-line, and I preached 10 minutes ago how much I love the O-line, I think it's really hard to see him there at 53 and pass. As much, I think Trotter might still be there at 53 too, which again, it's fun. I love Jeremiah Trotter Sr. I think Colson's a far better prospect, and if he's there, I want him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the place to attack O-line in this draft is round 1. Of course, there's going to be depth tackles. There always is, and Stoutland's an amazing coach, and he can coach anyone up. But if you want one of these guys with superior physical traits like a Fuanga, or like you were saying, an Amarius Mims, or just anyone of that caliber, you got to draft them in round 1. Yeah. There'll be guys in linebacker. There'll be guys in corners in round 2. Like Quinyon Mitchell is my guy, and I think he's incredible. But like, that's the only way I want to take a corner round 1. I love DeJean, and like I said, if we stay put, DeJean would be my pick, or Marius Mims if he slides. But we both have Howie trading up, and a lot of mocks have Howie trading up. But we'll see what happens. But like I said, I think linebacker, cornerback, offensive line, and if one of those is edge, I won't hate it either because you could always build.
Yeah. So if anybody we're going to write them down. We'll put them on Twitter tonight so we can check ourselves tomorrow. But we're going to see how we do. Out of 6 picks total between the two of us, I'd be pretty happy if we went, if we got 50%, right?
I'd be happy with 2. With how crazy this draft's going to be, with what I'm hearing, how many trade ups, trade downs there's going to be teams moving all around the board. I think I'd be happy with 2. I'd be happy with 1, if I'm being honest.
No, we gotta challenge ourselves. So
we're gonna challenge ourselves, but like if we look back tomorrow and one of us hits on round 1, I'll be like,
yeah,
it's a dub.
Well, I don't mean 3 for 3 for any one of us. I'm saying if you take the 6 players that we said.
Oh yeah,
total,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 of them are Eagles. That's the line.
How hard. I don't think people realize how hard the NFL draft is actually to predict outside of Caleb Williams to the Bears, because everyone knows that's happening.
Yeah,
it's been a foregone conclusion for months. I don't think people know how hard it is because there's gonna be a wrench thrown in the top 10 and everything's gonna go haywire. Because guess what? There always is. So we'll see what it is
like
tomorrow
Mark
night.
It's the perfect bracket till it isn't.
Maybe it's JJ Slide, and maybe it's another surprise defensive player flying up the boards. Something's going to happen that's going to throw every chalky mock draft into whack tomorrow, and it'll be fun to see, especially from the Eagles' point of view, especially with Howie lurking at 22, how he could do anything, and I think a trade-up is well in the cards. I think a trade down is in the cards, too, because this corner class is so good, but I think he's going to go – if I had to bet my money on it, he's going up, not down.
Okay. So we'll see. The line has been set. Over-under is 2 for accurate picks. We'll post them on Twitter probably tonight. Worst case scenario tomorrow morning, and y'all can hold us to it. But I think we're going to get 2 for 6. We'll see if we do even better. That'll be home run. So we'll follow up tomorrow. But until then, enjoy the madness. I'm Brandon. He's our draft expert, Ryan. And this is the Passing Report. We'll see you soon.
Peace.
All right, cool.